Hi, we are Rabbi Shmuel and Sara Lezak. We moved to Miami 7 years ago in August for the express purpose of building a Jewish community here in Miami Beach. When we first got here, we had no clue what that would look like, but it quickly became obvious that our niche was going to be young families reimagining Jewish community here in a big city full of Jewish infrastructure, but a place that's easy to get lost. And especially for transplants like ourselves who were coming from New York, the Jewish scene here was very different and there was a lot lacking, and we got busy quickly.
I mean, when we first came here, it was right before COVID. COVID hit a few months in. And as soon as that happened, it changed everything. We didn't know where it was going to go. But COVID brought a lot of people here, and it evolved into the flourishing young community that we are busy with on a day-to-day basis.
A lot of people that know of us or have been to something know of the organization maybe in a different light. Some people, their kids are coming to Hebrew school. For a lot of people, it's just the big events that they come to once or twice a year, whether it's the Hanukkah festival, the Purim party. And while those are big highlights of the community, something that is unique to our organization and maybe unique to Chabad, that it's really not about the numbers and it's not about creating big programs that are flashy. Those are fun, but the real focus and priority of our energy goes towards individual relationships, making an impact on a personal level, that each human being living in Miami Beach should have a rabbi or a rebbitzin that they are comfortable turning to in their, whether it's a time of need or it's just life, to ask questions to celebrate milestones with, to have a Jewish home.
I often tell people that you would expect to be a rabbi's favorite time is often my worst. For example, high holidays, there's a big crowd. I'm standing there in the front doing a lot of speaking, which I love doing, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing the job I have.
Really?
But often I don't enjoy it. I was actually just talking with someone yesterday who came through the door the first time on Yom Kippur, I believe, the last Yom Kippur, but I didn't meet him until months later. It's because I'm standing there in the front. I don't have the opportunity to say hi to people. And for me, the success of an event is if afterwards I'm able to follow up with people and make that connection more personal rather than just them coming to this big event. People love community. People love being a part of something where there's a larger crowd. But at the end of the day, I always tell people that if it goes by a week and I haven't sat down that week with one individual, I feel like I'm lacking. I feel like I'm missing on what I'm doing, even though there's a Hebrew school, there's a class that happened, there's a event, there's a Shabbat. But if I haven't fostered at least one valuable connection with someone, I feel like I'm lacking. And I enjoy most the time I'm able to spend with people one-on-one for a coffee, over the phone, or even just taking a walk and connecting with them on a very personal level.
So each of us make it a point that after any of our events or meeting anyone to follow up, so good to see you, but let's do a proper catch up. Let's do one-on-one. And like you said, it could be coffee, it could be lunch, it could be a walk, it could be a workout class, but getting in that, personal relationship to hear what's going on in that person's life. And each of us meet with many different types of people on a regular basis. You have the whole spectrum of people that live in Miami Beach. You have single, married, with kids, without kids, stay-at-home moms, businesswomen, people that their kids are graduating college. You have people that their kids are just being born. And everyone has their own individual life journey and questions and happenings and struggles. But we thought it would be interesting to share with the wider community some universal questions, that some things just come up for everyone. And so we thought it would be cool to hear from each other. We don't always discuss what happens during these individual meetings. What are the top, most frequently asked questions or topics that come up in our conversations? What are the folk of Miami Beach dealing with on a day-to-day basis?
we're trying this new this podcast format. It can evolve. It may evolve into whatever it may be. This is our first one sitting down, but I feel very much that everyone in their life has some sense of purpose, spirituality, connection. They feel like they're fulfilling something in their life. Especially here in Miami Beach, we're lucky to be around very successful people that are very busy, and they all have something that they feel like they're accomplishing. What many people may not know is the real soulful and spiritual side to these people. And you can throw in the word Jewish, but some people identify more as spiritual or Jewish. I believe it's both and it's the same, which we can discuss. But I think it's fascinating for people to hear some of those spiritual conversations that I have, that Sara has with people that we meet with regularly or once in a while, and for people to hear what other people are into in their spiritual growth, and how it's everyone's really looking for the same things. And some of these topics we'll discuss are things that come up very often, not from one person, from tens of people.
I just heard someone say, I think it was on Instagram, how like in Miami, the question of what you do for a living comes up immediately. Like everyone, you talk about business when you meet someone new at any of these social events. But something that doesn't come up is this. The kinds of questions you would talk to your rabbi about are the types of, spirituality seeking questions and purpose seeking questions. And so maybe we could bring that conversation, normalize it, and show everyone that we're really all on the same wavelength here. We all have the same Jewish soul, and these same questions come up for everyone. But so today we're going to discuss these frequently asked questions.
We'll pick the
three for each of us.
Yeah, three for each of us.
But I think that this is an opportunity for the future to create a podcast. It doesn't always have to be the two of us. Shmuel could sit down with different people that he meets with. I could sit down and bring a few local women that we've had conversations with and bring you interesting spiritual topics. And so we'd love feedback on what you want to hear about and who you want to see us speaking with for the future of this podcast that we are calling
The Soul of the Beach.
Bringing you the spiritual side of
what's going on here
locally. Going on here in Miami Beach.
Yeah, the spiritual side of people's lives, their parenting, their business, their relationships, the soul of really everyone here.
They say the landscape of Miami Beach has changed a lot, and I think the quality of life spiritually is shifting also. We're in a new era of spiritual awakeness.
And important to point out, as much as we're going to talk about some of we share with people, what comes to mind as we converse with these people, equally, I learn from these people so much. And it's actually a privilege that I have. There's rabbis that are in many communities everywhere. I'm privileged to be in a place where I'm surrounded by very successful people, entrepreneurs, or people that are in high positions in businesses, people that are very busy in their professional life, and also people that are very good fathers and good husbands. And I learn a lot from them. I'll share some of those tidbits as we go through the topics, some things that I've learned from my conversations with people. And that's something I look forward to when I sit with people, not just to be able to share with them what I'm passionate about in the wisdom of the Torah, of Kabbalah, but to learn from them.
What is the top most frequently asked question or topic that comes up in conversations with the local men to their rabbi?
I'm going to start naturally with a Jewish topic, even though we discuss everything under the sun with people. The first thing that comes up probably the most in all my conversations, we get to know each other. You break the ice, where I'm from, where you're from, my background, your background. But we always get into, the Jewish background. What Judaism did you grow up with? What I grew up with? And what were you surrounded by? And your Jewish life right now? And this comes up almost every time I talk with a parent, with a father, even someone that's not a father yet, but someone of 30s, 40s, 50s, the people that I speak to. Almost everyone brings this up. And that is their own, I don't want to use a harsh word, but their own sour experience of their childhood Judaism. It looks different for everyone. Often people reference their bar mitzvahs. And they say, when I was preparing for my bar mitzvah, I had to read a certain part. I had to fulfill what my grandfather wanted or what my parents wanted, what the rabbi wanted. And whoever it may have been, it felt almost theatrical. It felt almost obligatory They had to do a certain quota, had to do a certain thing. But then that was it. They didn't connect with it. And they often don't want their children to have a bar mitzvah for that reason. They don't want them to go through what they went through. But they felt like their Judaism was very obligatory, very theatrical. The things they did with their family, okay, there were some cultural parts, but they never really connected with Judaism as something that could contribute to their life, especially as an adult.
It was like a checklist. You do this and you do that. There's no like why you're doing it or why should you care about it.
So this is probably the hottest Jewish discussion that I have with people, as in, as they adult and they grow up, everyone needs some sort of meaning, some sort of guidance. And people find it from big personalities in the business world, the Tony Robbins, whoever it may be, or whoever's out there. But they often don't even consider that Judaism has any more than just a life cycle event. They often don't even not only consider, they resent it. And they say, like, to think that Judaism has something to offer to me in my life that I'm living now. So this is probably the top point of discussion that I have with people. And they bring it up, like, what's the future of Judaism? How can I pass it on to my children? Do I want to pass it on to my children? And of course, I'm very passionate about this. I'm a rabbi.
It's a great question. What's your answer?
So I don't have a one answer. There isn't a one size fits all. But of course, I'm very passionate about this topic.
But isn't that the point? Judaism is not supposed to be a one size fits all. The bar mitzvah experience became, this is what you do. This is what everyone does. And you were mandatory to do it. And so then down the line, you don't enjoy doing it. You never connected to it. And so it's not yours. Judaism is not a one size fits all. You need to find your place in it. You need to connect with it.
Yeah, 100%. Bar mitzvah is actually interesting before I get to like what I answer these people. But whenever I meet with a family for bar mitzvah, whenever a family approaches me with discussing bar mitzvah for the child, the first thing I tell them is nowhere in the Torah or in Jewish law does it say, thou shalt read the Torah for thy bar mitzvah. It doesn't say that anywhere. So coming into thinking, oh, bar mitzvah means my child's going to have to read a certain part, going to have to get up, they're going to have to, well, some people like that and they want that, but it's not an obligation. And I tell them my most important thing, if I sit with this bar mitzvah kid and he walks out feeling that Judaism is his, that he loves it, that it's something that he's excited about, that he appreciates, even one part of it that's valuable to him, that he connected with because we did an activity together about it, debated about it. I love debating with the bar mitzvah kids, the young kids.
They asked you, why should I do this? Why should I believe in God?
And I welcome it and I ask them. I tell them, the kids challenge me, why am I reading the Torah? And when they ask me that, I stop whatever I'm doing. I don't continue the lesson. I sit and debate it with them and discuss it with them and give them my reasoning, hear them out. And sometimes I have to think of creative ways to bring it out because they're 12-year-olds. But if a kid comes out of preparing for the bar mitzvah, connecting with Judaism, and they didn't read the Torah, I consider that a success.
That's a bar mitzvah that a boy will remember so much more as his and so much more pleasantly than the kid who actually did read from the Torah and hated every step of the process.
I'm very passionate about the fact that Judaism and Jewish thought, the holidays and all of the culture is more than just what people like, which is that family experience or that community experience, but it's really a personal experience. There's so much personal energy that exists in every holiday and every story in the Bible of the Torah and every part of Jewish history. There's so much spirituality that exists in it, ideas that are life-changing, ideas that connect with the soul because it's the truth of the universe, the truth of existence. I try to always pick one thing as I'm sitting with these people and give them an example, like a case study. And let's say it's a Torah portion of that week. I pick something from that Torah portion, or it's a holiday that's coming up, and I say, take this for example. I take it, I mention it, and often they're familiar with the basics of it from their old Hebrew school that they went to as a kid. And I tell them, this is life-changing. And I go and explain how. And I say, this thought of the Torah actually teaches this idea and that idea. and it guides your life, and it teaches you how you can live today as a different and a new person. It's a new approach to Judaism, it's a new approach to the Torah. And there's so many ideas, not so many ideas, it's all over. That's what the Torah really is. Like the Lubavitch Rabbi would teach that the word Torah doesn't mean a book of law. The word Torah means teaching. It's a guide. It's there to teach you how to transform your life, how to build your spiritual life and grow in your relationship with God. And I am very passionate about helping people realize that. And that's how I approach Judaism. That's how I approach when people put on tefillin. Here's a great example. So every time I sit with someone, I always offer them to put on tefillin. And they expect it because they're sitting with a Chabad rabbi. People turn it down.
How often do you leave the tefillin where you go?
I've left it in all sorts of places, but I haven't lost them. I have the tefillin. Whenever I offer someone to put it on, I often get pushback. Sometimes the pushback from people is just a ritual. What does it mean? But whenever I give it to someone to put on, I say the Shema prayer with them, and they think that's it. That's the end. They're going to take it off. And I say, no, wait a second. I say, close your eyes and make your own personal prayer. It's your moment with God. That's what I believe tefillin really is. And that's how I approach the entirety of Judaism. It's this lost trade, which always existed within Judaism, but this lost trade of your Judaism being one and the same as your personal spiritual growth. People all have in their life their spiritual growth. Some people do it by yoga. Some people do it with meditation. Some people do it in a business setting. They all have the spiritual growth. But then they don't associate that with Judaism. Judaism is completely separate. It's its own thing. It's cultural. It's family. It's what my grandparents did. It's heritage. What I try to open people's eyes to is that they're exactly the same. And all of the wisdom that we look for, we say the grass is always greener on the other side. Sometimes the grass is green in your own backyard. Over here, it's in your own backyard. It's in the same Jewish heritage that we think is just a theatrical, just a family, just a community celebration. Within there is the entire spirituality that a person can need in their life. And it's just about reapproaching Judaism with that angle and with that lens. And I tell everyone, like you may have not done this as a kid, but I challenge them. I say, try to reapproach Judaism. It doesn't have to be a study. It could be a holiday. It could be a tradition. It could be a mitzvah. Try to reapproach it fresh, as if you're doing it for the first time. But see it and look at it and say, how can this transform me? How can this change my life? What is there in it for me as part of my positive growth?
It's such a subtle difference. Like you're doing the same mitzvah of putting on tefillin, and then this one slight nuance that you're pausing is what changes the whole experience. It makes it so much more personal. It's so easy to do if you think about it. It's such a slight shift of, instead of just sitting down for dinner with the whole family, of asking ourselves, what does this mean for me? Why are we sitting down and celebrating this? It takes a second if you think about it, but that's what makes all the difference. That's what's so transformative about it.
And what's fascinating is talking about what I learned from people, is when I give people that moment to do their personal prayer, it's interesting what each people do. Everyone does something different. I have guys that stand for 5 minutes. They close their eyes and they're literally making a whole meditation. And I sit there and I watch and I'm inspired. And after, sometimes they share with me what they asked for or what they were thinking, or not even asking, just simply connecting spiritually to the moment of wearing the tefillin, thinking about their own family and life and their growth. And there's some people that 5 seconds, they're done. There's one guy, he told me, he's like, for him, he was taught, his father taught him, there's nothing else to pray for other than health. Because if you're healthy, you could do anything. And he says that's what he does. 5 seconds, he closes his eyes, he asks God for health in him and his family, and that's it. So everyone has their own way that they connect with it, but that is what tefillin is. That's what
makes
Judaism,
it personal.
That's what it all is, yeah, and that's what God wants.
Beautiful.
So that's my first
I see why people like meeting with you. This is not the top question, but it's the question, I would say it's number 3, if we're doing 3 top questions, but it's the question that mostly relates. It's like really a spin-off of this question. So I might as well address that, which is a very similar question, but I find, obviously, as with everything in life, males and females approach the same topic differently. I find something that comes up a lot that has the same notes and solution really as the question that you just brought up is a lot of people, when it comes to Judaism, their experience with it ended as a child. It started and ended as a child, whether it was they went to Hebrew school or they went to Jewish preschool and then they had a bat mitzvah or they didn't have a bat mitzvah. But at some point between the age of 10 and 13, the journey with Judaism ended. And, life took over, sports, college, work. And then suddenly I'm meeting people once they're, a little bit more settled and maybe they're starting a family. And now as a mom, you have these kids that you expect to be raised with the same Jewish identity that you had. Like they're Jewish, you want to raise them with Jewish values the way you were raised. But suddenly you're the parent who has to do that raising, who has to create a Jewish identity. And a topic that very often comes up in my conversations is, how do I do that? I don't have a Jewish identity enough of my own to pass that on to my kids. And where do I start with that? Like maybe I grew up having Shabbat in my home, but how do I do Shabbat with my kids? What does that look like for me? When at this age, it looked like this. With my grandparents, it looked like this. What's mine? And finding my way of being Jewish with my family as the adult. It's a real adulting question on a spiritual side. And it's obviously the core root of that issue is that it's very hard to come up with traditions to do when your traditions are solely founded in a childhood take on Judaism. There's no, we never revisited the topic of Judaism as adults oftentimes. And if you haven't approached something as an adult, how can we expect to pass that on to our kids?
You remind me of that song. There's a great song of Who Will Be the Zadie of Our Children. It's one of those old songs, English songs, about it's a story of a person remembering their holidays and their Shabbats with their grandfather singing songs and everything.
And it was always the Zadie who was the one that implemented all the traditions and customs.
And then the Zadie passes away. And they turn back and like, wait, who's going to run the Seder this year? Who's going to do the Shabbat? And then it hits them in the song and they say, who will be the Zadie of our children if not we? That we have to fill that role. And at some point you have to realize like, yeah, we're going to pass this to our children. But like you're saying.
And it's a realization of like, how am I going to be that Zadie? Or let's go back a step back. How do I be that mom without like, furthering my education, my Jewish education and reapproaching
So is that the answer you give people?
Well, no, that's the dilemma of like, I'm speaking as someone who's meeting with me. I have not ever looked at Judaism from an approach of I need to pass this on or I need to be the adult in this scenario. How do I do that? Where do I begin? And it often comes also with our climate of having a lot of transplants. Maybe their parents don't live here. And so, just relying on the parents' form of Shabbat is not really the solution. But it really is a prevalent issue. As soon as you become a parent, when you're a parent, you learn all these things about how to change diapers and how to sleep train and how to do all these things. And now you need a guide of how do I introduce Judaism to my children? And how do I, even deeper than that, which is not always something that comes out in the question, but something that I like dig a little further than that is oftentimes you don't have your own, as you were saying, enough of a drive to even want it so much because like, what about it am I trying to teach to my kids? Like, what part of it do I even like and connect to?
So it's a great question. I know the answer is probably broad, but what do you answer people? I'm curious to hear where you answer people and if you have like a specific tip, a specific thing that you told people
the real question that we end up boiling down to is like, give me one thing that I could do, Obviously, the topic is very broad, which is why I love the answer of it's not one size fits all. Because Judaism is going to look different for every single person. And that's part of rediscovering it as an adult. Furthering your Jewish education as a grown adult is finding yourself within Judaism, finding your own relationship with God, your own relationship with your Jewish identity. And that will look different than someone else's. And your Shabbat will look different than someone else's. But I think the first step is, well, it's twofold. The Rabbi always said like the one-step mitzvah program, like one thing at a time. You pick one thing that you did connect to, even if it was as a child, and bring it back. in your own home as an adult. Maybe it's something as simple as lighting Shabbat candles before sunset on Friday. Maybe it's something as simple as when you wake up in the morning with your children, you say, thank you, Hashem, that I'm awake. Modani. It's a prayer. Maybe you never connected with prayer, but as an adult, you can introduce that to your children. It's one simple act. And the trick is that one simple act always leads to the next act. So finding one thing, and I always come up with a list if we're sitting down in person of like, what are 5 doable, easy things that don't require much education that you can just implement as a parent, the same way you implement a routine to get your kids into bed more smoothly. First you do bedtime, dinner, then bedtime, then bath time, then a book, then a song, and then you hug them goodnight. So similarly, to come up with 5 easy actions that I could do to implement Judaism in our home. But I think much further than that, which is why it's twofold, is restarting your Jewish education as an adult. Learn something, join a class.
You're saying that's much more, it's more overwhelming.
That's a deeper step, but it also deepens your relationship with your Jewish identity. And as soon as you know something enough to be passionate about it, which you can only come to if you study it as an adult, you can't be passionate about something that you studied when you were 5. But if you could reapproach something and learn it with fresh eyes as a parent, which suddenly so many more things are hit so much more like personal and hit home and are so much more relatable. You know, Judaism like surrounds the family, but on a Kabbalistic level, only develop a personal relationship with it if you are a person that can develop a personal relationship with it. So with each year as you age, you're going to connect with the same studies very differently. I've been studying for 30 years, and still when I take out a new topic and learn it, because I'm in a new stage of life, I'm connecting with it differently. And it means something different to me now. So as soon as you take that step of, which is a harder step, which is why it's not the, easy light candles, but it's the step that's so much more productive in the long run, because you're actually gaining insight into what is my relationship with God, what is Judaism. And once I care about something, because I learned it, I connected with it, it's now I'm personal, I'm passionate about it, without even trying, that overflows to your kids. And without even thinking, your kids have a Jewish identity because they're being raised by someone who is imbued by it, who it's just overflowing. This is who I am. We all possess a soul. As soon as you learn what that soul is, the soul is shining, and your kids feel that soul, and their soul is ignited. The simple fix is picking something easy to do, to implement in your life, to make it a Jewish home, to make it a Jewish life. But the longer and more lasting impact step is to become a student of life and of Judaism. Don't think that just the way our education never ends in life, our education never ends as a Jew. And we have to humble ourselves and know that I don't know everything. Actually, I know nothing. The Torah is endless. There's so much to learn, layer upon layer.
I'll put a plug in here for Sara's wonderful classes.
Well, I learned so much from the class.
Weekly class. People should know.
It always amazes me when I prepare for these classes. We did a course on the Jewish women, of the biblical women. We picked 7 biblical women. These are basic characters of Jewish history that everybody knows, like Sara, the first Jew, our matriarch, Queen Esther. And it's like everyone knows the story of who these people are. And I know this story. I've learned it from when I was a kid all the way, right? I've taught this story many times. And then just studying this course to be able to teach it brought me to a deeper connection with these characters that I had never had before. Just because as you mature, your relationship with these characters changes. My relationship and lessons I've learned from our matriarch Sara have literally dramatically shifted of my childhood view of who Sara was to who, how can I be Sara? Actually, really, I'm named after her, I should imbue her characteristics. And it's amazing how even the same topics that you think you already know, as soon as you approach it as a grown human being, the experience is truly life-changing.
But the practical step that I wanted to say is that people can attend your classes.
Yes, the classes are very easy to
Weekly classes, monthly classes.
Shmuel teaches a class. I teach a class.
But these are ways for adults
We've
to be approached.
definitely upped our adult education.
People want more. People are asking for more, and
so many opportunities to learn. And it's because we're addressing this topic that's coming up in all of our conversations of how can you approach Judaism as an adult if you don't have that kind of knowledge. You only have the knowledge of your 10-year-old self.
I wanted to give one tip that I tell people whenever I come to a house to put up a mezuzah with people. I tell them always, let's schedule to do it when your kids are home, because I want the kids to be there to be a part of it. We do that, and then even then, I tell them that this can be a nightly ritual where you take your kid on their way to bed, have them look at the mezuzah, touch it, give it a kiss, and it's a way for them to remember that God's protecting them, God's watching them. There's something more powerful than what we see right in front of us, and it just makes their mind wander into what God is, what Hashem is, and what a power above us is. But this is a way to bring Judaism to life in such a subtle and simple way, and it's right there.
And it's
sitting by their bedroom.
All kids love kissing the mezuzah.
It's the cutest thing watching our Levi touch the mezuzah. He's 18 months, but he touches it before he goes to sleep. He loves
touching it before he goes to sleep.
He doesn't want to pass it without it. If you put him in this crib before touching it, he gets upset.
That's a very simple way to bring awareness of Hashem into your home as a parent. Okay, the most frequently discussed topic with me personally is, how do you do it all? As women, we wear a lot of hats, and those hats are different for everyone, but they're still universal. There is the mom hat, there's the girl hat of just being yourself, there is wife hat, there is, if you're working, work-life hat, and everything that it falls under those roles. And it's like, it's a juggling act. And how on earth do we make the time? Do we have the mental capacity, intellectual capacity, emotional capacity to shoulder all of the stress and to-do lists that come with all of those hats, with all those roles? And it's a huge question. And what I love about this topic is that it's the most relatable topic in the world to me, because it's a question I have to ask myself every day, and a question I revisit with every stage of life, with every new child, that those roles shift and they change. And it's the question of life. It's like the big question. How do we do it? The truth is, because it's such a broad question, there's no answer on one foot. There's one analogy that I heard once that I've repeated hundreds of times since I've heard it, which I bring it to my mind all of the time, because it puts everything into perspective, where the analogy is that life is like juggling many, many balls. And the key is figuring out which of those balls are made of rubber. And if you drop them from time to time, or you lose track of one and it rolls away into the corner, you forget about it, or maybe you remember it, but it stays in the corner for a while and you pick it back up when you're able to. And which balls are made of glass that you never want to drop? It's a very personal question to come up with which of the things in my life, which of those hats, which of those sub-hats within the roles are glass. I'm going to hold them very carefully. And no matter what else falls away, those are my priorities. It's a question of priorities.
But it's not just a question of priorities. The way you put it is so powerful because you visualize it. Like, if I drop that, it's going to crash. It's not going to bounce back. And it's like, I don't want to, when you visualize that, it gives a whole nother feeling to the regular topic of priorities.
Exactly. It makes the priority so much more critical. And it really puts things in perspective. This question is all about perspective. Oftentimes our days are so busy with actually not our glass balls. A lot of things that are just like taking up space and are just there and just became routine or are just like nonsense. A lot of those things are rubber. I could hand them off. I could let them bounce around a while. I could forget about them for a while. I could pick them back up when I have a calm season in the summer. I pick up a lot of rubber balls in the summer. And which things I'm going to hold in my hands, two hands, very carefully and handle with care. I think for everyone, universally we could decide which ones are the glass. We never want our kids to be falling off to the side. We never want our relationships to be the ones that we're letting bounce into the corner. And this is part of the broader question of the struggle of all the hats, is that a lot of us are in the thick of young parenting, where our kids take up the bulk of our emotional capacity and our mental load. And oftentimes the relationship with your spouse becomes the ball that gets dropped into the corner. And we think that in 20 years, when our kids are grown up and they don't need us anymore, we'll be able to pick it back up.
That's my next one.
I know, they feed into each other. The truth is, a very similar conversation with the juggling of the balls, but this one is more relatable to couples, is I once heard from a much older Rebbitzin than me that had many, many children. And she was speaking to a group of very young wives. And she was saying this exact point, how like we think, our kids are their priority suddenly because we became a mom and they're going to take our forefront of the mind. But she's like, guess what, girls? In 30, 40 years, your kids are going to have their own spouses and their own kids. And they're going to send you a postcard from wherever they're traveling with their kids. And who are you sitting with? Who are you living life with? It's such a powerful question to ask yourself when you're young, when you just take for granted that, your relationship will survive these childhood years and you'll be able to be on the exact same page you left off 10 years ago. And that's not how life works. We change when we become parents, and we change with each year of our children's lives, and we change with trends, and we change with life. And we want to be changing in unison and in harmony with our spouse. And so one of the glass balls, obviously, is our relationship, and feeding that and letting other things become the rubber balls that get dropped and that get picked up, because you can pick up a lot of other things much later on in life. We see all the time, we age ourselves too young. Like, we'll be fine. When our kids are older, we'll pick up those rubber balls. But something we don't want to drop is our relationships. Another thing that I'm always discussing in this topic of the juggling is the art of delegation. As women, it's a very hard thing to give up control over the things that we find important and over a lot of these roles. And the truth is that one thing, and with each child I've learned the hard way, but also in a very healthy way, that really the only way to keep the glass balls in my hand is, whether I like it or not, to hand the rubber ball to someone else. And there's so many people that I can hand it to. And if there isn't someone to hand it to, find someone to hand it to. There are so many things, and sometimes it takes like writing it out of like, which things am I critically necessary, because this is my glass ball, and which things I can give to someone else. And it might not be to my perfect standards, but it's worth it because I want my perfect standards for some
glass. People it's more difficult. You are a wonderful perfectionist in a very good way.
Yeah.
And I know this area comes very difficult.
So delegating,
you do a great job,
and learning which things can be forgotten about.
Where you preach.
This is a hard learned lesson. And the truth is that it's a lesson that we have to keep learning with each stage, with each task. As soon as we feel that there is a danger of a glass ball being dropped, we need to reevaluate. What can I delegate? What can I drop? What can I leave in the corner until a different time, and make sure I could be juggling the balls that matter.
Beautiful. I should consult with you more often. You have wonderful insight. I'll jump right off that, because that's outside of like the particular Jewish topics that we started with. Probably the next hot topic that comes up is people's relationships. Almost every guy I sit with, it comes up at some point. Some people ask directly about it and bring up issues that they're dealing with. And some people, it's more, it just comes up in conversation of what's going on, where they're holding, where they're standing. Everyone's growing in it. And most of the people that I interact with are dealing more or less on the same stage of life, where they have young kids. Sometimes I'm dealing with people, Bat Mitzvah, like 12, 13, 15, or 15-year-olds. People always wonder, what does Judaism have to say about it? What does Torah have to say about it? About how to make your relationship flourish and strong. And the question specifically, I'll narrow down the question. People ask how, thank God they're busy with good things. They have business. For some people, it makes them travel. They have their children at home that they want to take and be a part of their lives and take them to whatever games they have and whatever things that they're doing and just be present for them. And then often their relationship falls to the side. Not in an intentional way, it just so happens where they find that they're not connecting, or they're having a lot of conflict, or they don't have that same excitement that they had at the beginning. Often the way this question is worded is that honeymoon stage passes, where in the beginning, when you're fresh with each other, you're dating or you just got married, it's very exciting. You have children, which everyone wants, and then all of a sudden, like you get so caught up in that in a good way that the relationship becomes something more mechanical. It becomes something more like, okay, we have to figure out who's going to take the kids, who's going to do this, who's going to do that. But then that consumes so much of the time that what else?
You're co-parents instead of husband and wife.
And whenever people bring this up, I always tell them, everyone, I say, I have to make a disclaimer. I am not a therapist. I'm not a marriage therapist. I'm not a marriage counselor. So don't take any of my advice as professional advice. Of course, have my experience. And then I have the experience of talking with many people that go through this in their lives. So I learn from them. And of course, I have the Torah.
I think as a rabbi and a rebbitzin, it doesn't replace a therapist. We don't have that kind of education. And if a therapist or marriage counselor is needed, that's 100% part of the equation. But I think the reason why they're coming to you is not for what they would come to their therapist for. It's to hear the age-old wisdom. You know, there's some very wise things that God instituted. He knew what would happen when you're married for 10 years and put certain things into place, certain perspectives into place, certain laws into place to help the marriage survive.
People don't say this outright, but sometimes it comes out afterwards. That when they bring it up with me, they're often, I learned this, they're often just getting things off their chest because they know that this is the role I feel that God placed me in, to just be there for people in a non-judgmental and in a very objective way where I can empathize with them and I can hear them. And sometimes I find myself not giving that mind-boggling advice. But sometimes letting someone speak out their situation and their problem does more for them than an answer. And I often find that people tend to like go into those issues and I'll say an insight, I'll say this, I'll say that, I'll say a comment, I'll say a thing, just because I don't want it to be a one-way conversation. But more than that, they realize after, and I realize that they're really just talking because there's someone on the other side of the table that's ready to listen and not judge, not to be critical of them, and just treat them for who they are and really listen, respect them, admire them for what they're dealing with, and show them that there's someone that cares for them despite this thing that they may be dealing with and going through. So I find very much that that's some of the reason why people come back and discuss more things. I don't necessarily have the biggest answers, but they're not always looking for the biggest answer.
We weren't meant to go through life alone.
On this topic, so I'll share it from a Jewish perspective, show you how it's like sourced in the Torah, but it's also very practical, what I often share with people. The number one question I ask people often is, do you have any sacred time that you spend with your spouse alone? And what I mean by that is not something intimate, not in the bedroom. When I ask that, I mean like something that's light, that's easy, but that's not revolving around the children, doesn't revolve around professional life, doesn't revolve around even family dealings, and doesn't revolve around other couples, meaning a double date doesn't count. Do you do something with your spouse that's just sacred, you and two, because you're married? We did this when we dated. We all did this maybe earlier in our marriage, but people often find themselves, often the answer is no, I don't.
Isn't it crazy how like we're so amazed at how in love we are when we're dating constantly, and then like you remove that part of the equation. Like now you're not allowed to go on dates anymore. Everything's going to revolve around kids and friends and work. And you're supposed to somehow keep up that feeling that you had for each other without fostering it.
And there was one person that I'll never forget. I remember him till today. Early on in my years here, I was talking to him and I was trying to invite him to something on a Thursday night. And he's like, no, Thursday nights I can never do. And I do things often on Thursday nights for people. And all my men's events are on Thursday nights because people travel. That's when they're back. It's the weekend already. He told me, he can't do it. Why? He's like, Thursday nights, he gets a babysitter every Thursday and he goes on a date with his wife. And this is someone who his kids aren't young now. They're still young, but he has kids that are bar mitzvah age. And I was so inspired to hear that. And it was really like eye-opening to me. How he's simple guy, nothing of status, nothing of anything. But, him and his wife may not be exactly the same, but they have a sacred time where they're not going to be with other couples, just with each other to date on a weekly basis. I'm sure they don't do it every week. But that was like eye-opening to me. And I'm like, wow, more people need this. And this is the number one question I ask people all the time when this topic comes up, if they have that in their life. There was one person that told me that they have a weekly like time where they get together for like lunch with their spouse, and that's the time that they save to discuss like things that they need to figure out and how they're parenting, or things that they need to figure out and how they're doing things in the house. And they a
team meeting.
Yeah, they prepare a list of things to discuss. And I told them, no, that doesn't count.
That's a team meeting. That's not
exactly.
a date.
I said, no, you need to have a time where it's with no agenda. No agenda. You're not there to discuss anything specific, just to be each other's spouse, just to be a couple, just to be there for each other. And not to get too personal, but when things are busy, we're not that good at it either. In the summertime where people are away, you want to know what we do in the summer? We're very busy, thank God. We
have a once a week.
But we do. We in the summer, we're very religious about it. Throughout the year, it's much more difficult. But I've learned this from people.
But this is a topic that we've discussed personally, how like, why is it that meetings with other people, we, keep golden and they never shift, but the time we scheduled in for date is consistently being shuffled around, like why is this the thing that gets bounced? It shouldn't be, it's something to work on, all of us.
So something interesting about how what's the Torah's perspective. So not everyone may be familiar with the first mitzvah in the Torah. What's the first mitzvah in the Torah? The first mitzvah in the Torah. Be
fruitful and multiply.
Very good. You studied your Torah well. The first mitzvah in the Torah is to be fruitful and multiply, which means to populate the world and to have children, which we're here. That's the only way there's a future. They say there's a decline. The people into promoting having children.
We need to have more beautiful Jewish babies.
Yes. So that is the first mitzvah in the Torah. And for that reason, some people may go and say, well, according to Judaism, marriage is about having children and about raising those children. And let the children be the focus of your relationship. And while there may be truth to that, I often tell people that may be the first mitzvah in the Torah, but that's not the description of marriage. If you want to know how the Torah describes marriage, you have to go to, in the book of Genesis, in the same area, the Torah describes Adam and Eve being with each other. And the Torah says that what's the goal of having two spouses, husband and a wife, a man and a woman. What's the goal? It's for v'davak bi'ishto v'hayu lebasar echad. That he should cling to his spouse and become like one flesh. That's the literal translation. And this is the source of this whole theme. The principle of marriage in Judaism, the principle of relationship in Judaism starts way before the kids and lasts way after the kids. And even while the kids are there, it's not only about the kids. It's about clinging to each other and becoming one. Feeling like you're one with each other, not because you see eye to eye in the way you parent, not because you see eye to eye in hobbies, but because you actually feel like one with each other on all levels. Doesn't mean you're exactly the same. In the same place, the Torah also says you're an ezer kenegdo, which means that the spouse is there to be opposite the other. You grow from someone that's not like you. Opposites attract. So it doesn't mean you're exactly the same when we say that you're like one. But it means that the focus of relationship of your marriage is to become one, irrespective of the children and of what stage in life the children are in. This is the clear source in the Torah for what that is. Now, Kabbalistically, you go even further, where we say that the two spouses are two halves of a soul. Everyone has heard that thing, but practically it means that you are one soul, you're one energy. You're one entity. When you marry each other.
The concept of soulmates is Kabbalistic. you're actually soulmates. Like you're one soul that was divided.
And that has nothing to do with children. That starts before, continues after, and is there irrespective of the children while you're raising them.
Exactly.
You're one soul. You're there to be there with each other, be one, be united, feel like you're one with each other, regardless of what the dealings of your marriage may have to deal with.
Team parents against team kids. And the more kids you have, the more you feel like they're ganging up against you.
It's true. And this is these are some sources in the Torah. Of course, you have the famous teaching in the Talmud about where it says Ish and Isha is the Hebrew word for man and woman. Ish means man, Isha means woman. You can hear when I say the words how they sound very similar. Isha, Ish, they're similar. Now, if you spell them out, they both consist of two of the same letters, Ish, which means fire. But then they each have a different letter, the Yud and the Hey. Ish has a Yud and Isha has a Hey. So it's fire with a Yud and a Hey. Yud and a Hey are a name of God. And that means that when they're separate, there's different messages in this quote of the Talmud or something saying they're without God, they trample over each other, fire. And only with God in the middle can they actually become one. That's a separate subject. But relating to this topic, it means that yes, you should, in order to have something true, to have divine, to have God in it, you need to be able to connect with each other, irrespective of everything else.
Well, do you know what they say about fire? Why it's Ish, Ish, and Isha are fire? How do you become one with someone so different than you? How do you take different substances, oil, water, spices, and make it into one? If you just mix it together, it stays separate. What do you need to do to properly combine something very different from each other? You need a fire. You need heat. You need passion. So we're one question short. We're going to have to do a part 2.
We'll do a part 2, definitely. We'd love to hear everyone's feedback. And
I actually have another 2 very good questions. So we could definitely revisit this conversation.
We have many more. I mean, thank God we speak to people all the time.
Yeah.
We also look forward to having other people with us that we can talk to and share. Again, I think a big goal of what we're going to do here is really show the soul of the beach, show the spiritual side of everyone here, how people are into spirit. People, like I spoke earlier, people see spirituality in Judaism and showing people's growth in Judaism as a personal thing. And that's something that they connect with. And people from all walks of life, people, CEOs, people that are founders, people that are just simple people, someone working in a firm, all these people that's on the men's side, on the women's side.
They're just like us.
Everyone has a sense of spirituality. And I am excited to share that with the public and share the insights that we discuss with people.
So please voice your interests and what you would like to see us discuss on the soul of the beach. Feedback from this conversation, follow-up questions. We're very grateful to the chat room for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you, Haley. Thank you, Moshe Popak.
And Haley for inviting us to the studio and for making the soul of the beach accessible to everyone and opening your home as our home.
Yes, and it's a great spot. If you ever need somewhere to record, a great team, German, who's great. And thank you to everyone here. We look forward to more of this.
So until next time, I know this is not considered a date.